A dark-haired girl was being led in chains to her death. Someone shouted that she was the empress. People were discussing that she was a woman who had been deposed because of treason. It was Ruzentia de Aradel. At the execution, people whispered that she really was a witch, because an ordinary girl could not have such dark hair. Ruzentia thought before her execution that her life was truly miserable. She was born in the Arga Empire, to the family of Count Aradel. Her family had enough power among the aristocracy, but none of this mattered much to her. Ruzentia's father was very partial to women, so he had a fair number of bastards, and she was the 12th of them. She got her appearance from her mother, except for the color of her eyes. Because of this, the countess hated her. The girl lived her entire life as an unhappy, illegitimate child. However, the real horror awaited her after meeting him. When Ruzentia was a teenager, she was introduced to Her Highness the Prince. Then he appeared suddenly. The other children tried their best to attract his attention, but she was the only one who was afraid of him. Therefore, the girl tried to avoid meeting him and not to catch his eye once again. But among all the count's daughters, the prince chose her, aged 12, as the crown princess. And her father very quickly agreed to this marriage. Thirsty for power, he was only glad that the man he wanted to see as emperor would have his own blood and flesh by his side. A few years later, Ruzentia became a princess. And her father immediately tried to make the emperor his puppet. But he was much smarter than him. In 5 years, he strengthened his power, which drove the aristocratic party into a corner. If it had ended there, he would have used Ruzentia, born into an aristocratic family, impeccably and very cunningly. But everything turned out differently. Suddenly, rumors began to spread about the crown princess, as if she was taking all the riches from the treasury into her hands. Then she was accused of causing the prince's mistress to have a miscarriage. Dark witch. That's what people called her. One time her father gave her poison and asked her to send the emperor. Ruzentia doubted that it was necessary to do this. Then the count shouted at her and said that he had never intended to let them live from the start. Therefore, they must attack first. The emperor heard their conversation. His Majesty drew his sword and promised Count Aradel to do everything quickly so that he would not suffer. The count called him ungrateful and added that he had forgotten who had helped him become emperor. Count Aradel fled, pushing his daughter onto the emperor's sword. His Majesty told Ruzentia that her father had used her as a shield and that it was a real disgrace. He brushed the tears from her face. The emperor executed all who opposed him. The Aradel family was wiped off the face of the earth. And at the end of this deadly long and painful life of Ruzentia, the day of her execution came. After she was executed, the emperor announced that the fallen ruler, Empress Ruzentia de Aradel, had been deposed. The people were pleased. The coachman told Mrs. Ruzentia that she could get out of the carriage. The girl replied that Ruzentia was already dead and that her name was now Rose. Then he asked where she would like to go. Rose replied that anywhere, as long as it was far away from this city. In the carriage she had a dream. The emperor found her and asked how she survived. She noticed her dead coachman lying on the floor. His Majesty said that he had new toys thanks to her and stuck his snake tongue out of his mouth. The emperor added that it was time for her to go to the next world, as had been planned from the very beginning. A huge snake attacked Rose. She screamed no and woke up. The girl knew that this was a prophetic dream. Such nightmares had been haunting her since childhood. Although she could not see the future she wanted for herself, this skill sometimes saved her. Thus, Ruzentia learned in advance that she was destined to become an empress and die on the chopping block. However, she was unable to change what was predestined. Only after facing death as a deposed empress could she regain her freedom, all thanks to a doll created for her by an alchemist. Then Rose stopped in the Turan Empire, which is at odds with Arga, and became the owner of the largest trade guild, Chaos. 5 years have passed since then. However, to her misfortune, the emperor continued to appear in Ruzentia's dreams, and this prophetic dream reminds her that this is not the end. But now she is no longer the powerless empress. Now she has the strength to fight it. Rose has decided that she will protect everyone, even if it means putting her own life on the line. A year ago, when he first met Rose, Duke Aitan was very surprised that the owner of the trading guild that everyone was so eager to get was a woman. He was a special person. There was not a single person in his family who did not master the art of the sword. In the Duchy of Aitan, swordsmen were raised from generation to generation. Rose believed that their abilities were a guarantee of her protection, so she needed him. Duke Iton asked the girl how she would help him solve the land issue. He added that he had already approached other guilds, but no one had been able to do it. Rose replied that she had not had any failures so far. Then she asked the Duke if it was true that he had sworn on his name that he would do anything if the weather issue on his lands was resolved. Duke Iton replied that it was so. Then Rose said that she would believe his words and handed him the paper. She added that these were her conditions if the deal ended well. The man read the paper and said that if she failed after this, he would not leave it like that, swearing by the title of Duke. Rose promised him that she would not disappoint. The Duke said that was quite a bold statement. He added that he hoped that it was more than just words. The girl replied that chaos never throws words to the wind. Rose added that he would soon see for himself. Otherwise, how would they become the best guild on the continent? The Duke's assistant asked if he thought they could handle it. After all, in the north you always have to fight the harsh cold. And until now no one had dared to declare a solution to this problem. The Duke replied that if Rose said so, then so it would be. Rose stood and looked out the window from her room. It had been almost a year since the meeting with Duke Iton and the construction was almost finished. A servant knocked on her door. When he entered, he announced that a man from Duke Iton's estate had arrived, and the Duke conveyed that his promise would be kept. The girl was delighted and said that now it was her turn to receive gifts. Finally, I caught you, Duke Iton, Rose thought. That night she had another prophetic dream. Ruzentia stood in the middle of a battlefield. She saw how one man dealt with an entire squad of knights single-handedly. Judging by his indifferent look, this was a normal thing for him. He looked as if nothing had happened. Then she found herself in a bright room. When Rose saw this man naked in front of her, she was surprised that she was dreaming at all. He looked into her eyes and she woke up. The girl did not understand whether the dream was prophetic, but later this man continued to appear in her dreams. When her fear of the emperor plunged Ruzentia into the abyss, he appeared. She looked into the eyes of this man, who seemed to be afraid of nothing in this world, and felt as if she was behind a stone wall. On such days, Rose could sleep peacefully, without thinking about anything. A man with dark eyes and hair, who are you? Ruzentia asked herself the same question many times. The assistant informed her that Duke Iton had died. The girl was unhappy that this had happened. She asked the assistant what was the cause of his death. He replied that it was old age. He died just a week before the contract was to be fulfilled. Rose was angry at her prophetic dreams, which had not warned her of the Duke's death. After thinking for a while, she asked her assistant what was known about his heir. The man replied that he seemed to have gone to seek the emperor's blessing. However, the informant was unable to obtain any information about him. It was as if this man did not exist at all. Ruzentia leaned back in her chair and said that this was a family of swordmasters. She ordered that everyone be warned not to approach him, as it was dangerous. Then, after studying the documents, the girl asked her assistant Gray how old the man who would become the next duke was. Gray replied that he was 30 years old. Ruzentia then asked what the probability was that he preferred men. The assistant replied that the probability was 0. After that, the girl asked what the probability was that he was not interested in women in general. Gray replied that they had not found any information about that yet. Rose said that she wanted to go there herself. Gray was very surprised by this decision of the lady, but he did not argue with her and began preparing for the trip. In the north, in the Duchy of Iton, an aide informed the Duke that Tojo's party was requesting an audience with him. The youth replied that they had been getting on his nerves lately. Then the young Duke asked his assistant what was wrong with the rats in the estate. The assistant replied that they had been caught. Then the Duke asked if it was known who was behind this. The assistant replied that it had not yet been confirmed, but it seemed that they belonged to the Tuhu aristocratic party. He added that Duke Dukan's capital party was also suspicious, and he also insisted to the last that he had not approached the Duke's bathroom. Really? The Duke asked in surprise. The assistant asked what to do next. The young Duke replied that he knew it himself. Then he looked out the window and said that people from the Chaos Trade Guild had arrived and asked to invite them into the house. The assistant was surprised how the gentleman knew who exactly had come to see them. Jack went outside and approached the carriage. Ruzentia Gray's assistant apologized for not warning them about their visit. Assistant Jack replied that everything was fine, and the Duke was already waiting for them inside. Gray was very surprised by this. When they entered the mansion, Jack introduced them to the young Duke. Duke Khan von Iton stood before them. When Rosa saw him, she immediately realized that this was the man from her dreams. She had no idea that this was the new Duke Iton. Grey Reed greeted His Grace Duke Iton and introduced himself as the leader of the Chaos Guild. He offered his condolences. The young Duke asked to get down to business, but when he said this, he was not looking at Grey, but at Rose. Ruzentia felt that he knew that she was the head of the guild. Then she decided to ask the Duke for forgiveness and introduce herself to him personally. The girl said that her name was Rose von Isaac, and that she was the head of the Chaos Guild. Duke Khan propped his head on his hand as he sat on the sofa and asked her irritably what she wanted. Rose told him that she had made a deal with the late Duke, and according to this deal, she was supposed to receive his protection. The girl added that she fulfilled her part of the deal, however. The Duke died suddenly. Therefore, she would like the young Duke to fulfill his father's obligations. Duke Khan replied that he agreed, but she would not be his ward, but his mistress. Rose was shocked by this answer, but she did not lose her head and asked the Duke if he was not going to use her as a shield against Tojo, as a countermeasure against any possible troubles. Duke Khan told the girl that she was quite clever. Rose said that she had already fulfilled her part of the contract, and now it was his turn. The young man asked why she thought he would agree to such conditions. The girl reminded him that she was the guild leader, and asked if he thought there was anything she couldn't do. And Khan asked why the leader of such a powerful guild would reveal his true form. Ruzentia thought that it didn't look like this man had just assumed the position of Duke. She regretted that they hadn't managed to get information about him beforehand. The girl knew that all she could do now was fight. Rose told his lordship that when the contract price had already been paid, putting forward new conditions would call trust into question. She asked the Duke where the guarantee was that new conditions would not appear. Duke Khan asked the girl what she was proposing. Rose offered him one option. A contract made at the temple is no different from an oath. Therefore, he must put his life on the line until the terms of the contract are fulfilled. Duke Khan added that the heart of anyone who violated them would be torn apart by divine power. The girl said that there was no contract more perfect than this one. She asked if the Duke agreed to conclude it. Khan answered okay. Then Rose said that since she had already fulfilled her conditions, and new ones were being put forward to her, she would like to clarify something. The girl asked His Highness if he wanted to share her bed. Duke Khan asked if she wanted to refuse. Rose replied that she did not want to sleep with him, but then she added that only if everything was by mutual consent or if it was necessary, she would agree. The girl asked if he accepted this condition. The Duke approached Rose and asked what to do if she attacked him first. She smiled and replied that it was not for nothing that he was called the Duke of Unearthly Beauty. But the girl added that she would not cross the line, so he should not worry. The young man said that this was a bold statement. Then he asked if it was possible to control it. Rose replied that she had already gained experience in this matter, because she was divorced. Afterwards, she gave the Duke a paper with a written contract and a pen for signature. The girl promised that she would do nothing that could jeopardize their contract because she did not want any problems. She asked him to sign the contract. Duke Khan told the girl that he saw that she really needed this contract, but he added that she had better not hand it over if she valued her life. Rose replied agreed, and the Duke signed the contract. As she left, the girl said that she would eagerly await the response from the temple to conclude the oath. Khan felt someone sneak up behind him, leaving no trace behind as he walked out of the bathroom half naked. He only knew it was definitely a woman, and this guild leader did not give him any peace. During the conversation with her, he tried to use his energy, but there was no reaction. Khan thought that she might be hiding some powers, but if she is able to block his powers, then it would be difficult to call her human. And then there would be no particular sense in this contract. And in her eyes, a strong will to live could be seen, despite the fact that she was trembling with fear. Khan wondered what such a strong-willed woman could be afraid of, especially since she is the head of a guild that can give you everything you want. The Duke asked his assistant Jack if he understood correctly that Rose was the daughter of the fallen Baron. Jack replied that according to the information they had, it was. Duke Khan ordered his assistant to double-check the data, only this time to dig even deeper. As they were riding back in the carriage, Grey's assistant told Lady Rose that Duke Iton's family was shrouded in mystery. Nothing was known about them except that they were all swordmasters. No woman who married them could live a peaceful life. The late Duke was handsome despite his age. However, he had no interest in women. But the new Duke. Gray added that it would be nice if their guild could take over Duke Iton's troops. Rose reminded them that their enemy was Emperor Arga. She suggested that they would have enough power to win, but then other countries would stop considering them a guild if they destroyed an entire empire. The girl added that she cannot put her people in danger, and she does not want them to suffer because of her past. Gray said that in any case, they should not let their guard down. What worried him was that the Duke's mansion knew they had arrived before they had even stepped out of the carriage. He warned the lady that there was a chance that her true identity would be revealed. Gray added that informants should be ordered to conduct more careful surveillance. The girl said that there was no need for that. She added that everything secret eventually becomes clear. Besides, the Duke would not be so worried about it. Ruzentia thought that what was really strange was how he recognized her. And maybe that prophetic dream wasn't a dream at all. Maybe she was just watching him at a specific moment in time. Then, she thought, since she had dreamed of him, it meant she was doing everything right. The girl remembered that in novels they call it fate, and she smiled. When they arrived at the estate and told their people what had happened, not everyone supported their mistress's decision. One man asked how she could agree to such a thing. Another asked if she was missing something in her life, since she had decided to become the Duke's mistress. Rose replied that she had no other choice, and went away, leaving them with Gray. Gray assured the other guild members that their mistress was doing everything for them, but they were doubtful. One man asked if it wasn't because the Arga aristocracy had taken action. Rose's assistant told him that he had understood everything correctly. Quan was very observant. He told everyone that the lady had said that it was necessary, so all they could do was watch. Then, Quan reminded the others that just a few years ago they were suffering from hunger. He even had to leave his family behind. And without the lady, they would not have reached their current position. The man asked if they hadn't all made a vow that day. If she helps us solve the problem of survival, then we will dedicate our lives to her. In the corridor, a red-haired young man asked Rose what she had done to charm the Duke so much. The girl asked if she really looked so pitiful in his eyes. Then she asked the boy why he was talking to her like that. The boy apologized and said that everyone stayed with her even when she let them go, because they like her and they owe her their lives, just like he did. The guy put his hands on her shoulders and reminded her that without her, he wouldn't have survived when he was a teenager. That's why he promised to stay by her side and be her loyal sword. The young man said that she can use him or throw him away. It's up to her to decide. Rose replied that there was no need for that and asked him to just stay by her side. She added that Duke Iton would be her shield. The young man asked if she believed him. The girl replied that she had no choice and the Rubicon had already been crossed. She added that only those who did not give up today would see tomorrow. And she would never retreat. She would protect everyone and survive herself. Assistant Jack informed Duke Iton that he had found nothing, and added that there had been no word from the Empire about the girl. He suggested that it would take a little longer. Duke Khan said that they would have to send someone there. Jack then asked the Duke if he was really going to swear an oath to the temple. The assistant reminded him that holy power and Aton's mana should not be mixed, as it could be painful. He did not like the fact that the Duke wanted to do this for some stranger. Khan replied that he didn't care about any of that. Then he asked his assistant to tell her that they would meet at the temple in a week. On the appointed day, they met in front of the temple. Rose asked the Duke if he had anything to say to her before meeting the priest. As soon as Khan looked at her, she immediately remembered the dream where she saw his naked body. The Duke showed me the girl the contract she had drawn up and asked what this clause meant. The clause stated that each of them was guaranteed a free sexual life and confidentiality. The young man added that it was the first time in his life that he had seen such an obscene contract. Rose replied that since vague terms could be misleading, she decided to be as precise as possible. The girl admitted that she knew little about relationships. She added that she had no good memories of marriage, but that didn't mean she hated men. And the guild wouldn't have reached its current position if she had such a narrow-minded mindset. The girl said that she knew perfectly well that there was no room for feelings in a contract, because it would only cause inconvenience to both parties. That was the reason she had drawn up this clause. Rose apologized to the Duke for embarrassing him. Duke Khan replied that he accepted her conditions. Then he asked the girl if she trusted him now. Rose's answer was no, and Khan said that was a fairly honest answer. Then the girl asked if the Duke had signed the contract out of trust in her. The young man replied that he had done it only for his own interest. The Duke said that the world was simple, because only the strongest survived in it. Khan admitted that he was always on top and that made his life too boring. But she is so fragile, as if she would break from one touch, and has such a will to live. The Duke thought that this girl had added a little salt to his bland life, and told her that he was simply curious to see how far it could go. Rose didn't understand what he meant by this, and whether it was a warning. Then the girl wondered if she was doing the right thing, but she knew it was her only option, so she wasn't going to regret it. They held hands as they stood in front of the priest. He waved his staff and said that their oath was brought in. The Duke kissed Rose's hand and said that she was now Duke Eaton's woman. Khan added that it would break her heart if she broke her promise. Rose said that he should take care of himself so as not to go to the next world. As Rose was packing up her room, Mr. Grey asked her if it would be a good idea to move the guild headquarters if she decided to live in the Duke's mansion. The girl replied that the guild should remain in the capital because they needed to monitor the activities of the Arga aristocracy. After all, this was the guild's main duty. Then Rose told Grey that he must obey her decision to become Duke Eaton's mistress. The man replied that she could always rely on him. He added that if things get tough for her, she can pass some of her burden on to him. After all, every time she tries to cope with everything on her own, he feels unnecessary. Rose really wanted to tell him everything, but she took his hand and said that it was not so, and she really needed him. The girl told the man that he had replaced her father, and she would never leave him. She couldn't tell him that she saw the future in her dreams, and even there was no happiness waiting for her. Red-haired Casa was waiting for Rosa at the door to go with her to her new home. Duke Khan stood on his balcony and looked out at the snow-capped mountains. He thought about how the women of the dukes of his line always had a bad ending. His mother was no exception. Khan was afraid that the same fate awaited Rose if he developed feelings beyond simple interest. "Just don't regret what you did, Rose. After all, you yourself approached me. The choice was yours, so you will also be responsible for the consequences," the Duke thought to himself. In the carriage, Rosa asked Casa if he would always accompany her. She asked if he liked the Duke. The young man replied that the Duke was handsome, but he preferred women. Suddenly, the carriage stopped and Rosa asked what had happened. Casa looked out into the street and said that someone had blocked their way. The coachman from the other carriage approached them. He said that their cart had crashed into their carriage and now one of the wheels was broken. The girl told him that she knew someone from the guild and they could ask him for help. This way, they would fix the carriage and not even charge for the repairs. The coachman walked to his carriage and was indignant that it was so kind, and Count Brill would not have to pay. Hearing the Count's name, Rose remembered hearing that Count Brill's family had been driven out of the capital to the north. She was surprised that he was so noble, that he didn't even get out of the carriage. The coachman returned to them and said that Count Brill had said that he would not investigate the matter, but he could not leave their rudeness unpunished and demanded one wheel from their carriage. Rose thought it was absurd, but she told the coachman that their wheel didn't look too broken. The girl asked Casa to break off their wheel. The young man began to hammer on the wheel and Count Brill came out of the carriage. Rose was glad that he showed up. Behind him she saw a young fair-haired girl. She knew immediately that this was his daughter. Looking at her outfit, one could assume that they were heading to meet Duke Eaton. The girl came closer to them and told the Count that she was glad to meet him. She introduced herself as Rose from the Eaton family. The Count asked if it was too much to throw a hammer at the carriage. Rose replied that she had tried to act quickly, as he had asked for the wheel to be given to them. Count Brill said that he was in a great hurry to meet Duke Eaton. Hearing this, the girl smiled and asked if he could get to his meeting without a wheel. Then the Count asked what business she had with Duke Eaton. Rose replied that she had been invited, and asked if he was not going to him for the same reason. The fair-haired girl was surprised that she had received an invitation from the Duke himself. She heard that Duke Khan also had dark hair, and thought that perhaps she was his relative. Although she thought that she looked like a country bumpkin, the girl assumed that she could easily be the daughter of some baron, but not a duke. When she looked at this stranger, she had a bad feeling. Rose suggested that the Count and his daughter should move into her carriage so as not to share wheels and travel together to the Duchy of Eaton. Count Brill said that was too much. But his daughter interrupted him and said that it was too generous of them and they could not refuse. She smiled at Rose and said that her name was Isabella. As the girl walked away with the red-haired boy, Isabella wondered why she had never heard the name Rosa von Isaac in high circles. What was also disconcerting was that this girl had received an invitation from Duke Eaton himself. Casa asked Rosa why she had decided to give them a ride. The girl replied that it was all for the purpose of fulfilling the contract. He did not understand what she was talking about, but suddenly they were interrupted. Isabella asked what kind of relationship they had. Rosa smiled and replied that Casa was her friend and escort. The girl laughed and said that she had heard that older women now like younger guys. She added that it was the first time she had seen something like this with her own eyes. "Hey girl, aren't you being too loud? Maybe you should shut your mouth and get into the carriage," Casa shouted at her. Count Brill angrily asked Lady Rose if her subordinate was being too presumptuous. Rose replied that she could do nothing about it, as his rank was too high. The man thought that this guy could be a high-class mercenary, and there are only 3 of them in the world. They are difficult to hire even for fabulous money, and suddenly it dawned on him. Wait a minute, scarlet eyes and hair. Is that by any chance a scarlet fox? The Count suggested. He patted the young man on the shoulder and said that they had not been introduced to each other. Rose smiled at Lady Isabella and suggested that she quickly go to the carriage, since Duke Iton was already waiting for them. The girl did not like her self-confidence, but she hoped to please the Duke. When they arrived at the mansion, Duke Khan Iton came out to meet them. Isabella saw him for the first time and thought that the rumors were true, that he was handsome. Title, money, power, even the face. He had it all. She decided that he was definitely hers. The girl bowed to the Duke and said that her name was Isabella von Brill. When she raised her head, she saw him pass by her and approach Rosa. He asked her, "Have you come after all?" And she answered that she could not ignore his invitation. Isabella watched the girl touch his face and didn't understand what was happening. Can whispered to Rosa what she was doing. The girl asked if now was the time for him to use her. She asked him to play along and the Duke hugged her. Then he picked her up and carried her into the mansion. Count Brill shouted what all this meant. He was indignant that the Duke had not paid any attention to his guests. Assistant Jack asked them why the Duke should receive said guests. Isabella asked her father to leave, and he asked the butler who the woman was. Jack replied that she was the Duke's lover. Count Brill was very surprised and shouted that such hair color as theirs is very rare nowadays. This could mean that they are related, so such relations are forbidden. Jack replied that in the ducal family, only one child is born from generation to generation, and took his leave. The Count wanted to say something, but his daughter stopped him. She told him that this was the Duke's domain, so there was no point in doing anything. But they would never forget today's incident. Rose asked Can to put her down on the floor as she was still in his arms. She was ashamed of her behavior, as she herself said that their relationship was forbidden. The Duke sat down at the table and, having reread the contract, asked Rose if she had achieved her goal by hiding behind the contract. The girl did not have time to answer, as he said that she could continue to do so. Then he said that he realized that she needed to be saved from these uninvited guests. Khan asked Rosa if they had offended her, and she asked in surprise if he was not against playing along with her sometimes. The Duke replied that he did not mind. Then Rose said that she should be more confident. Khan said that she was brave and suggested that she practice with him. But the girl said she had an idea. They needed to hold a ball for the Toho nobility. Duke Khan was surprised, and Rose explained to him why it was necessary. She gave the example of Count Brill, who came here uninvited but behaved confidently. And this confirms that he looks tall on the Duke. Rose said that if the newly crowned Duke Aton did not come out into the world, the Tojo nobles would forget about his existence. She added that some, like Count Brill, would want to palm off their daughters on him, while others would covet the position of Master of the North. If a banquet were held where everyone would learn of his beloved's existence, the Toho nobles could be brought to heel. Rose also added that after today's meeting, Count Brill's daughter would not give in so easily. Then Duke Khan said that she could organize a banquet to her taste. As the girl headed for the door, he called her and said that she did not have to ask his permission from now on. Rose was surprised that he trusted her so much, because they did not know each other at all. Khan asked Jack to discuss the upcoming banquet with Rose. He told his assistant that she insisted on him introducing himself to the nobles. Jack replied that it was indeed time for him to meet them. He added that although the previous duke had shepherded the nobles, the actions of their leaders had been ambiguous, and a banquet is a great way to make a statement. Khan said that Rose said the same thing, and added that she was very smart. Jack asked if he trusted this woman that much. The Duke replied that they should thank her for her courage. The assistant then asked if that was why he had made a contract with her in the temple. Khan said he hadn't planned it, but he was curious. Jack asked him what would happen if she didn't help. The boy said it was okay. In any case, her will to live is so strong that she will never betray him. In fact, Khan is very tired of this. He is the strongest man in the world, a master of the sword. Women like him and men fear him. But he knew that a girl who falls in love with a man from a ducal family is doomed to a curse. Khan remembered his mother screaming at his father, holding a blade in her hand. She asked him to let her go if he loved her. But he laughed. The girl knew that he would not let her go even after death. She screamed that his whole family was like that. The father asked why she did not accept his heart if she had given him hers. The Duchess replied that he was a monster who only imitated people, but felt nothing himself. Little Khan saw all this with his own eyes. His mother died a painful death, and his father was so obsessed with his wife that he immediately followed her, killing himself with a blade after her. Seeing them die, Khan realized that the feelings called love were simply terrible. Jack told him that the same fate awaited him and his descendants. And now that Rose had appeared, Khan knew that she would be the one in danger, not him. Suddenly, Hyde, a guy in a black suit and a hood on his head, climbed into their room through the window. He informed Duke Iton that he had learned the true identity of Rosa von Isaac. Her name was Ruzentia de Aradel, and she was the Empress of Arga. Jack asked in shock if this was the same deposed empress. Khan immediately realized that they were talking about the same dark-haired witch. Jack asked if this information was reliable. Hyde replied that it was for sure, and that he had managed to find out with great difficulty. The assistant suggested that the lady might be a spy, but Duke Khan said that was nonsense. Now he finally understood who Rose was so afraid of. She was afraid of Emperor Arg. After all, if the Empire finds out that the Empress has survived, they will go against the Duchy of Iton, and then, under the pretext of reducing diplomatic friction, they will try to take control of the north. Khan thought that with Rose, everything was only getting more fun. He said that they should watch the capital's nobility. As soon as the Duke said this, Hyde jumped out the window and ran. After running a little around the corner of the mansion, he bumped into Rose. The girl told Hyde that she wanted to talk to him and offered to have tea with her in the garden. After drinking a cup of tea, the young man asked the lady what she wanted to talk about. Rose asked if she understood correctly that his name was Hyde. Then she said that she turned to him because she thought he knew absolutely everything. The young man answered in fear that this was not so, but if she tortured him, he would still not say anything. The girl was surprised that he was so scared, because she just wanted to ask him about Duke Jack's assistant, because she wanted to get a little closer to him. Her guild was already at risk. And now the main thing was not to fall into disfavor with the Duke. However, she saw that his closest circle was displeased with her. Hyde only told her that Jack was a rather complicated person and was about to leave her. Then Rose asked Hyde if he really didn't want to go on holiday to a warmer climate. The hooded youth returned and sat down at the table. He asked the lady if she could arrange this for him. Rose replied that the Duke had given her permission to do whatever she wished. Then Hyde asked what exactly the lady wanted to know. The girl asked what Jack the butler's weakness was. In other words, if there was anything he liked. Hyde put a cookie in his mouth and said that there was something that he was interested in and loved at the same time. The guy asked if she would really send him on vacation if he said so. The girl replied that she always kept her promises. Then Hyde said that it was the Duke of Khan, the man Jack loved so much. Rose was upset that she had not managed to learn anything new. In the evening, Rosa was sitting at the table in her room and talking with Casa. The young man pointed to the spare door in her room and said that it led straight to the Duke's room. The girl did not believe him, thinking that he was joking, but Casa said that he heard it from the maids. He added that it seemed that everyone here considered her the mistress of this mansion. Then he asked why they didn't just get married. Rose said he had too big a mouth to be her assistant, and asked him to help her move the cabinet to close the doors. Casa asked in surprise if she really wanted to fence herself off from the swordmaster with a simple cabinet. The girl replied that in this way, she would at least mark her personal boundaries. When Casa moved the cabinet, the girl asked him to bring her a toolbox. He asked what for, and Rosa replied that it was necessary to secure the cabinet in this position. The young man went to get his tools, sighing that it was pointless. Rose was wondering why Duke Khan had given her the mistress of the estate's room if they were only pretending to be a couple. She was worried about his overly favorable attitude towards her. The girl asked herself whether something terrible would happen if she became too sensitive. Rose said out loud that she would first simply hammer nails to secure the wardrobe to the floor. Suddenly, She heard the Duke's voice, saying that this would not help her. When the girl turned around, Can said it was pointless. Rose smiled at him and said it was just for her peace of mind. Then the young man asked if she was really worried that she would lose her temper and attack him. Can added that at first she showered him with compliments, but now she wanted to fence herself off with a closet. The Duke said she was rather unpredictable. Then he asked if she was really that bothered. Rose sheepishly replied that she was just a little uncomfortable. Completely confused, Can asked the girl why she felt uncomfortable here. Rose replied that his lordship was taking her too seriously. Since the Duke gives her equal powers and even gave her the room of the mistress of the estate, Can touched her hair and said that he cares for her as much as she cares for him. The Duke suggested that Rose continue to try to do so and left. The girl blushed from his touch and thought that he was trying to seduce her. When Casa brought the tools, he noticed how Rosa blushed after Duke Khan left her room. He understood that she liked the Duke very much. Late in the evening, the young man sat in a tree and wondered if everything would be okay with Rose. He saw that she had begun to attract Duke Iton, and nothing good awaits the women of this family. That night, Rose had another prophetic dream. It was a banquet hall. She was standing on the balcony and watching what was happening in the hall. The girl was very scared when she saw Khan there covered in blood. In the morning, she drank tea at the table in her room and thought about who in this world could kill a swordmaster. However, she knew that her dreams could be trusted. Rose wondered what kind of madman would do such a thing. Her thoughts were interrupted by the butler knocking on her door. Jack brought the plan for the banquet and said that if Lady Rose had any comments, he would take them into account. The girl was surprised that the butler had written such a large guest list in such a short time. She thought that he would not want to help her. Jack added that the Duke never hosted any events, so he might have missed something. Rose now understood why the man looked so nervous. A banquet for a butler is a great opportunity to demonstrate not only his skills, but also the status of his master. Organizing a perfect banquet is the dream of any butler. Rose thought she had found a lever to put pressure on him. The girl told Jack that this banquet was extremely important to them, as it was the debut of the newly minted Duke Iton. She added that at this banquet, the nobles of Tojo would judge the Duke, and it was after that they would decide whether to bow their heads before him and go along, or to devour him. Rose told Jack that since this was the Duke's first ball, she wanted to surprise everyone so that no one from Tojo would dare to stand in the Duke's way. The girl added that this was a great opportunity for the butler to show off his skills. Jack agreed and said that everything needed to be planned within the budget. Lady Rose told him that he shouldn't worry about money, because her guild would arrange everything in the best possible way. Jack thought that this witch was trying to tempt him with money. But he was still glad to have the opportunity to organize a banquet, because it was for the Duke. Casa entered Lady Rose's room and asked what she and Jack had been talking about. The guy added that he met the butler in the hallway and noticed his good mood. The girl replied that she had only given him what he wanted. She also said that she planned to give him a separate room. Then Rosa asked Casa if he had gone to the Duke's guard, but the guy replied that he had not found anyone. The girl asked in surprise who was protecting him then. The young man smiled and replied that he was his own bodyguard. Then Rose said that she needed to talk to the Duke. Casa said that she herself knew where the Duke's office was. Rosa was indignant that he had completely forgotten about his work duties and had to accompany her to him. After escorting Lady Rosa to the Duke's office, Casa took his leave. He said that he did not want to interfere with their relationship. The girl was a little upset, because she felt awkward being alone with him. Rose knocked and entered the study. She told the Duke that she wanted to talk to him about his night battalion. Noticing his body under his shirt, Rose felt a little embarrassed. She asked the Duke why he had no knights. Khan asked in surprise if that was necessary. Rose said that the knights were needed for his safety at the banquet. The girl added that if he didn't need them at normal times, then at his debut banquet they were necessary. People were needed to guard the territory. The Duke asked why they were at the banquet. Rose replied that they didn't know what the Tuhu nobles would do, so it would be a good idea to intimidate them with a show of force. The girl couldn't stop thinking about the Duke's seductive body. She tried to push away all the dirty thoughts and concentrate on protecting the Duke and preventing his murder. Khan came closer to her and touched her face. The Duke asked her if she had a fever, as she was burning all over and her face was red. Rose replied that everything was fine and asked what he would say about the guards. Khan replied that he could put a few guards in the banquet hall if she insisted. The girl said that she would trust him with this and quickly ran out of the room. Rose stood behind the door and didn't understand what was happening to her. She had never felt anything like this towards a man before, so she didn't know how to react to this now. The day of the ball arrived. Rose tried to find out something the whole time, but she didn't find out any information about the supposed murder. All she could do was wait. When Casa brought her a dress, Rosa's maid immediately blushed when she saw the young man. Rosa thought that she was surrounded by two handsome men. Casa asked Rosa what had happened and why she had no face, since nothing had even started yet. The girl asked him to stay close to her and the Duke at the banquet. The young man smiled and asked why she needed him if she had a swordmaster with her. Rose replied that it was his direct responsibility to accompany her. Casa asked the maid who was busy with Lady Rose's dress to go to the kitchen and bring him some water, because he had been thirsty for a long time. When the girl left, Casa asked Rosa to tell him everything as it was. He said that she had been very agitated lately and he wanted to know why. The girl admitted that she had information about the murder. Casa asked if someone had already died. He added that Emperor Arga still believed her dead. Rose replied that it was not about her now, and that someone would try to kill Duke Aitan during the banquet today. Casa did not understand her worries and said that she had nothing to worry about. After all, whoever tries to kill the Duke will go to the next world today. The girl calmed down a little and asked if he would be with them at the banquet. Casa replied that he would accompany her if she was so nervous. He asked Rosa to relax and just play her part in the event. Jack told Kanu that all the nobles of northern Tojo had already gathered for the banquet, and everyone was waiting for his lordship in the banquet hall. The Duke asked where Lady Rose was. The butler replied that the lady had conveyed that she would enter the hall after him. He added that Lady Rose had put a great deal of effort into preparing for the evening. The assistant said that she had provided them with the support of the Chaos Guild. He said that Lady Rose did not want anyone to dare to cross Duke Aitan. Khan thought that Rose was doing a great job as a hostess, but he knew that because of her position as a mistress, the nobles would ignore her. People in the hall whispered that it was the first time they had attended such a luxurious banquet, and that Duke Aitan was no slouch. Lady Isabella was the center of everyone's attention. The nobles approached her one by one and expressed their admiration for her beauty, adding that the Duke would not be able to resist her. They also asked her about the wedding. They talked about how Duke Aitan never went out or met anyone. Isabella didn't give any concrete answers to their questions, but she herself from that very day could not forget his handsome face. His noble birth and reputation as a swordmaster attracted her. She also couldn't resist the Duke's mansion, which was strewn with rare items that couldn't be found in the entire country. Isabella believed that she had to get the Duke. Butler Jack announced to everyone that Duke Aitan had arrived. The nobles were happy to finally see the swordmaster. The girls were delighted by how handsome he was. Isabella looked at him, not taking her eyes off him. She thought Duke Aitan was an insanely handsome man. But when she noticed the dark-haired woman on the balcony, the girl stopped smiling. Duke Aitan gave Lady Rose his hand, and she went down the stairs to the guests' hall. Isabella was very angry that this woman was still with him. One girl asked Isabella who this lady was who was so close to the Duke. She knew it was Rosa von Isaac, but she did not answer her. Rose pressed herself against the Duke and kissed him on the cheek. Khan kissed her on the lips in return. The girl smiled and said, "Your Grace, I asked you not to do this in front of people." Then she told the butler that they would go for a walk to get some fresh air. The nobles in the hall began to discuss the fact that this woman was Duke Aitan's lover. Casa, who had been quietly watching the guests, smiled at the fact that these two were constantly playing to the crowd. Isabella was very angry because now everyone was talking about her family. Since her father was going to marry her off to the Duke and everyone knew about it, the girl decided that she would not leave it like that and would take revenge on Lady Rose von Isaac. When they got outside, Rose asked the Duke what he had just done. Khan replied that he wanted to ask her the same thing, since she was the one who had broken the terms of their contract in the first place. The girl asked if he was talking about the prohibition of touching without mutual consent. She added that, of course, it was her fault for not warning him, but his actions had gone too far. Duke Khan replied that the only difference was that he kissed her on the lips instead of the cheek, but she didn't really resist. Rose asked what he was hinting at. Khan said that she was not against his touches, and it is that feeling when you cannot stop. He admitted that he felt it for the first time. Then the Duke told Rose that he thought he loved her. The girl responded in surprise that she did not hear confidence in these words. Then he repeated that he loved her. Rose did not understand what he had in mind, and how one could fall in love with someone so quickly. The girl asked the Duke why he had made a contract with her in the temple. Khan replied that he was merely following her wishes, as he personally had no need for his imprisonment. But Rose said that she did not want to enter into such a relationship with him, since such feelings only interfere with work. The Duke asked the girl to just stay close to him and promised that there would be no problems, and he would keep his word. Rose asked if he was sure about that. Then Duke Aiton asked her if she knew the rumors about his family. He added that the Duke of his family would never let his beloved go. Duke Khan stroked Rose's face and asked her if this constant thought about her and the desire to touch her was not love. Then the girl said that she wanted to see his love. Rose told the Duke that she wanted to make sure that his feelings were sincere, so he could show his love for her as much as he wanted. She handed him 2 rings. The girl said that these were enchanted obsidian rings. Rose said that as feelings for a partner deepen, these rings will turn red. She knew that if the Duke's feelings were true, his ring would show it. Khan asked what would happen between them if the ring changed color. Rose replied that she would decide later. In fact, she had no time for feelings. Rose knew that if such feelings overtook her even for a moment, she would endanger everyone else. The girl understood that love was a luxury for her. In the hall, Lady Isabella approached Rose and greeted her. She asked how she was doing and said that they had not seen each other for a long time. Then the girl handed Rose a glass and offered her a drink. Rose smiled and asked how she liked the banquet. Isabella replied that it was wonderful. The Earl's daughter asked if Lady Rose had attended other banquets. The mistress of the estate replied that she had no need to, as she was not as beautiful as Lady Isabella. Rose raised her glass of wine to her lips, and Isabella said that she should at least show herself in society sometimes. She asked if it wasn't nice to mix with other ladies. Lady Rose thanked Lady Isabella for her advice and said that she had to go. The girl watched her go and thought that the Duke was protecting her now, but soon her true form would be revealed to everyone. When Rose had moved away from her a little, she poured the contents of her glass into the flower pot and said that Isabella had overdone it with the poison. As soon as she took the glass in her hands and brought it to her lips, she immediately felt a faint smell of poison. It won't kill you right away, but rather paralyze your mind. Apparently, she wanted Lady Rose to start doing crazy things in front of everyone. Rose thought it was an obvious prank for a well-bred noblewoman. The girl understood that if she were an ordinary person, she would drink the contents of the glass without further thought. But in the past, she had been the wife of an emperor, and death by poison was the most harmless thing that could happen in her situation. Isabella watched Lady Rose all the time and waited for the poison to take effect. Then she invited her friends to sit with her at the next table, not far from Lady Rose's. Rose thought that Isabella was no longer hiding her intentions. Lady Isabella told the other ladies that the drawing room smelled of roses, and that this scent suited Mr. Aiton. Then she asked her friends if they could smell anything animalistic. This means that there is a beast somewhere nearby. One lady said that she could smell it too, and another said that you could choke on such a terrible smell. Then Lady Isabella asked where they thought the smell came from and looked at Rose. The girls turned and looked at her too. Isabella said that she clearly lacked tact, since she did not come out here herself. The Duke is not stupid, so he will quickly get rid of her. Wherever you go, there are such beasts, right? It's a pity they don't understand it themselves. The only way to protect their pride is to just disappear, Isabella told her friends, loud enough for Rose to hear. Suddenly, Rose came up behind her and asked if she was the one she had just said those indecent things about. Lady Isabella asked what she had said wrong. She added that the dirty girl who had wandered around somewhere before suddenly found herself in the duchy, and now she thinks she knows everything. You're playing the mistress here. But know that the daughter of a ruined aristocratic family has no chance of anything except becoming a mistress. Can a rag become a duchess? Isabella asked. Lady Rose laughed and said to Lady Isabella, "Isn't she the one holding that rag in her mouth now?" She added that the girl looked so sweet from the outside, but one only had to listen to her speak. Isabella swung her hand at Rose and screamed, "How dare a pathetic girl from the Baron's family look at her so arrogantly?" Rose stopped her hand in midair. The mistress of the estate told the guest that it was not for her to talk about this, and added that she was now restraining herself with all her might so as not to tear out her tongue. Isabella cried out that she dared not speak like that, and Rose smiled and suggested that she forget the incident, just as she would forget the contents of her glass. Lady Rose turned to leave, adding that if she continued in the same spirit, she would be in trouble. Isabella asked if Rose thought she could get away with insulting the Earl's daughter. "Someday I'll tear out your eyes, break your fingers, and throw them to the beasts," Isabella said at last. Lady Rose said that she liked the fact that she was not such a weakling. But Rose added that if Isabella decided to compete with her for real, then she should be prepared for the worst. Otherwise, she would simply kill her herself, and left. As she left the room, Rose thought that her words would at least calm this crazy aristocrat for a little while. She cared too much about her reputation. In the corridor, Rosa noticed Kasu and approached him. She asked him what he was doing there. The young man replied that she herself had told him to be near the Duke. Casa added that he was there for him, but he just turned out to be unnecessary. He said that he was worried about her during that altercation with Lady Isabella. Rose calmed him down and said that she could stand up for herself, since he himself taught her self-defense. At this time, Count Brill decided to add poison to the glass of wine. He thought that if he gave the Duke a paralyzing poison to drink, he would lose his mind, and then he would be able to get useful information from him. Isabella ran to her father and he quickly put the poison behind his back. The girl said that she could not stand this Rose any longer and wanted to go home as soon as possible. Count Brill promised his daughter that they would leave right away, but only after he had spoken to the Duke. Isabella told her father not to delay and left. The Count promised that they would leave soon and wanted to take the glass, but it was not on the table. He realized that Isabella had taken it, but it was too late. She drank its contents. During a dance with Rose, Duke Khan asked her why she was looking around all evening. The girl replied that she was simply embarrassed to dance with him, since he had already completed the entire course of etiquette for nobles. Rose remained on guard looking for the killer, and Khan asked her not to think about anything but him. "After all, I am doing everything in order to take possession of you. It would be great if you could just pretend for a little while that I can do it," the Duke said. Rose asked why she had to do that, and Khan shouted at her to duck. The Duke shielded Rose with his body and she saw Isabella running towards her with a blade. Lady Rose told the girl that she had warned her and told her to be careful. She added that Lady Isabella had gone too far. The girl became indignant and Rose slapped her in the face. Rose wondered if Isabella could be the murderer. The mistress of the estate decided that this was out of the question. After all, the girl was aiming at her, not the Duke. Isabella continued to behave aggressively and deliberately pushed the pyramid of glasses. Glass shards flew right at them. Duke Khan covered Rose with his body and asked if she was okay. When she saw that he was covered in blood, she realized that this was what she had seen in her dream. Rose touched his cut face with her hand and asked the Duke why he had not dodged the shards. And Khan replied that she would have suffered then, and Rose noticed that his ring had turned red. The girl wanted to call a doctor, but Khan stopped her. Then she asked what to do about the blood flowing from his face. The Duke assured Lady Rose that he would be fine, because he was a master of the sword. A member of the guard approached them and asked his lordship what they should do with this girl, pointing to Lady Isabella. Isabella began to insult Lady Rose again and wish her death. Rose asked to be allowed to deal with herself, and the Duke allowed it. She ordered the guards to release Lady Isabella and give her the sword. Lady Rose told the girl that she was giving her one try, and added that if she thought the Duke's mistress should die, then this was her chance to kill her. "Take the sword and kill me. Don't you want to take my place? Doesn't it seem like your reputation is tarnished? If you think you deserve it, stand up and fight," Rose said. She was sick and tired of being insulted and mocked by young ladies, and the ball she had worked so hard to organize was ruined. However, the most important thing is that Isabella dared to harm Duke Khan. Although the girl was surprised that she was so worried about him, she did not even think that it would anger her so much. Lady Isabella was indignant that she was not a savage to fight with her with swords. Then Rose swung her sword and cut off a lock of the girl's hair, and she screamed. And Rose said that she would like to cut off her hands for trying to stab her with a dagger. The mistress of the estate asked if she was only so brave when she acted from behind. Rose asked Isabella why she had put poison in her glass, turned the other ladies against her, and why she did not have the courage to take up a sword and fight on equal terms in front of everyone. Lady Isabella screamed. Did she think that such a fallen girl? How would she fit into the duchy, and did she really think that the Duke would not throw her out after some time? Rose came closer to the girl and inserted her sword into the hem of her dress, saying, "Isabella von Brill, I will say this only once, so remember. Con von Iton is my man. The Duke smiled when he heard her words, and Rose continued telling Isabella that if she interfered with them again, she would not be let go so easily. Isabella pulled out a sword from her dress and swung it, shouting insulting words at her, wishing her death. Then Duke Iton grabbed his sword and cut off her hand, which held the sword. The Duke swung a second time, but Lady Rose said that was enough and asked him to stop. The ballroom descended into chaos. The frightened nobles and the bloody Duke. That's what she saw in her dream. Suddenly, some aristocrat came up to them and asked what kind of disgrace it was. He introduced himself as Count Thor von Gardien and asked why the stupid Tojo nobles were greeting Lord Iton so poorly. Count Thor guessed that the North was not to their liking. That's why they started this whole show. And not just anyone, but a noble woman from the center dared to behave like that in front of the Duke. The man came closer to Duke Iton. Count Thor told the Duke that as a nobleman of the North, he was delighted to meet his lordship. The Count added that they could not simply ignore the manipulations of the Heartlands. Then Count Thor knelt before Duke Iton and said that he was ready to become his sword at any time, whenever the Master of the North wished it. The Count congratulated him on his return, and the nobles began to shout in turn, "We greet the Master of the North! Accept our congratulations! Welcome back!" Duke Khan approached Lady Rose and said that the color of his ring had changed, and now it was her turn. He added that he would wait impatiently and left. Rose blushed. Her heart, which had been calm, began to beat faster again. She had completely forgotten what it was like to experience such feelings. Duke Iton stood by the fireplace in his chambers, thinking. He thought that Duke Dukan was too greedy. It seemed that the Emperor's grandfather occupied a prominent place. The royal family and the nobility look up to Dukan alone. But he didn't understand why he had sent Count Brill to spy on him, and what he was going to do with the Count now. Khan thought that Dukan had decided to test him in this way and sent someone he didn't mind. In addition to the hidden information about the Duke, they wanted to persuade the North to solidarity. That's what Count Thor told him after the banquet. He also said that they were being openly provoked, so something had to be done. Duke Iton replied that he hated politics, but Count Gardien said that his lordship could not pretend that nothing had happened and was obliged to go to the capital. The Duke replied that he understood his concern. Count Thor von Gardien said that his lordship did not seem to understand how much the North disliked the center. They fought against invasions of their homeland under harsh conditions, to a land that is not as rich as the capital. The people of the North are proud of their homeland, but the center simply treats them as mercenaries who guard the capital. He added that even so, they do not deny their military and financial power, which is why they specifically impose high taxes on the Northerners. As the population of the North decreased after the war, the Toho nobles began to marry ladies from the central region. Accordingly, their children will lead the North in the future. Because of these marriages, the influence of the center on the North will increase. The Count told the Duke that it would be nice if his mistress became a symbol of the women of the North. He added that her will and strong spirit were captivating. Then Count Thor asked the Duke why he didn't just marry this woman. Duke Khan looked at the ring and said he had to go. The Count asked where he was going at such a late hour. Khan replied that he wanted to talk to Rose. The Count seemed to care nothing for Duke Dukan. Before leaving, the Duke asked if the woman had survived. Count Thor replied that she had, since he had only cut off her hand. Then the Duke ordered her hand to be placed in a coffin and sent to Duke Dukan, adding that he would understand everything. The Count was stunned and at the same time delighted with Duke Iton. When Rose entered the bathroom, Khan said that she had finally arrived. The girl asked if it bothered him that she was watching him take a bath. The young man replied that everything was fine, as long as it did not cause her any inconvenience. Rose put the jar on the table and said that she had brought him an ointment that would heal his wounds. Khan said that his wounds would heal quickly on their own. The girl asked if the ointment would speed up the process. Then the Duke asked her to apply the ointment to his wounds. Rose replied that he could handle the matter himself and was about to leave. But Khan said that he had suffered while protecting her from that crazy girl. Feeling guilty, Rose returned to him and applied the ointment to the Duke's face. The young man asked her if she thought it was too much. Rose realized that he was talking about Lady Isabella and said that she got what she deserved. Then the Duke asked why she did not kill her herself. The girl said that although she had acted badly, it was only a childish misdeed in a fit of jealousy. Rose asked what she would gain from killing her. She added that sometimes she really wants to kill someone, but in reality she will not do it. Khan said that the enemy has no gender or age. The Duke said that there were many people like him killed on the battlefield. For him, killing is simply a matter of survival. Khan said he had no one to look after him as a child, so he was forced to cope on his own. Rosa added that he still tries to cope on his own. From Rosa's smile, Duke Khan realized that he wanted to possess her even more. He knew that he had interested her from the very beginning, because his words immediately made her blush. Then the Duke decided that there was no need to rush. He knew that she would be his anyway, and all he could do was wait. But now Khan decided to act. The young man pulled the lady into the water. Rose screamed in surprise, and Khan said that he could not wait any longer and wanted to get closer to her right now. The girl asked him why he always said such indecent things. The Duke asked her to drop all these formalities and asked if she didn't feel the same as he did. Then he asked Rose if she herself was not interested in what this feeling between them meant. Khan added that he saw that she was not against being close to him. Rose thought about the fact that she really wasn't disgusted by this man. She remembered how from the first meeting she had immediately felt something for him. However, there is no place for love in her life. The girl was an illegitimate child, used by her own father and a wife, beheaded by her husband. Rose has been through so much and still continues to fight for survival. Because of the constant danger, she cannot live like an ordinary girl. She had many reasons to stay away from him, so she tried to ignore her feelings. But for some reason, he grabs her. Rose said he was right and admitted that she was attracted to him. The girl kissed the Duke and said that she would not mind spending the night with him. Sometime after the Duke's death, in a place accessible only to Duke Aitan, Khan found his grandfather's diary. As death approaches, my magical power weakens. For the first time I began to see in Kana not only a successor, but also a grandson. I began to realize that my son died unhappy, together with his beloved, and the psychological trauma that Khan now has. He doesn't even understand human emotions. I feel guilty, the Duke read. His grandfather managed to escape the curse, but it didn't seem like he was satisfied with his life. Before, Khan had only two paths. Either live like his grandfather, suppressing his emotions, or go crazy and die like his father. The boy knew that if he did not suppress his emotions, the same fate awaited him as his father. But Khan still decided to refuse his grandfather's offer. Instead of living like a walking corpse, even though it wouldn't last for very long, he wanted to feel alive. The Duke touched Rose's hair and thought that he would very much like to keep it that way. But he did not know if he could. Khan was always wary of everyone, so he didn't know if he could trust her. Little Khan appeared before him and asked if he was asking him to rely on luck. The Duke asked the child if he didn't like her. The boy replied that he did not know, and asked if he was afraid that he would end up like his father. He added that the girl would die because of him. That's why Khan, as a child, suggested to the Duke to seal him away so that he could live a normal life and not have to worry about anything. Khan replied that he could not give it up so easily. The boy asked if he did not care about her life. The Duke asked why he cared. Then Kang added that he was not as good as he thought. Little Kang said that he was lying, and that he was worried that this woman would share his mother's fate, and also that she might leave after learning his secret. Khan replied that with Rose everything would be different. The boy said that all people were the same, but the Duke replied that even so, Rose was special. Then little Khan asked the Duke if he loved her, and he answered yes. The boy asked how he could be sure of something he had never experienced. Khan replied that when he hugged her, his heart was beating like crazy. The Duke suggested that this was love. The boy asked him to stop imitating people. He asked the Duke if he wanted to go mad and die like his predecessors. Khan replied that he was ready to accept his fate if that was it. The young man added that he would rather die than give up Rose. The boy asked him with a sad look if the girl would not die saving him. Khan became angry and drove his imagination away. The Duke remained sitting on his bed next to the sleeping Rose. He thought that he did not need salvation. After all, he had already received what he wanted. When the girl woke up, she remembered how gentle Khan had been with her. Rose was surprised by this, because she thought he was bloodthirsty and cruel. But the Duke turned out to be kind and caring. Rose thought about the fact that she knew nothing about him. She wondered what kind of life he had lived and what secrets Duke Aitan was hiding. When Count Brill saw the coffin in his office, he decided that his daughter was dead. Then he thought that Isabella would never have been married without a hand. So it's better this way, because she won't be of any use to the family anyway. But when he opened the coffin, he was scared. His daughter was looking at him from there, her mouth tied. The Count untied his daughter and asked who had sent her here. Isabella said it was a warning from the Duke. Then she asked her father if she was right in saying he had been forced to leave here. Count Brill realized that his daughter blamed the Duke for everything, and had no idea that it was he who had put poison in her glass. He breathed a sigh of relief and hugged Isabella. The man said he would never allow anyone to hurt his daughter again. The Duke was informed that Lady Brill had returned home safely, and his intentions were conveyed. Duke Iton said that it was good and asked to continue watching. A young man from the reconnaissance group asked where Hyde had gone. Khan replied that he was on vacation. The boy asked in surprise since when this was possible. The Duke did not answer, and the boy noticed the woman on the balcony who had seduced the Duke. Rose called the eagle named Aro to her, and stroking the bird's head said that he had finally returned. In the letter he had brought on his feet, she read about Duke Iton. It said that the current Duke's parents died when he was 8 years old, and that the previous Duke had sent the child abroad for a time. Apart from that, there was no information about the Duke and no one knows anything about him. Rose wondered how this could have happened. The girl thought whether she should ask him directly and whether he would give her an honest answer. At first, Rose thought that it had nothing to do with her, but now she is interested in this man and everything connected with him. She heard that all the women of his family suffered, and Rose was interested to know the details. Suddenly the eagle flew away. The girl realized that someone had scared it and turned around. There were 3 young men in black hoods and masks. At first Rose thought they were assassins, but when she looked at them more closely, she noticed their unkempt appearance and tired faces. The girl realized that they were Hyde's reconnaissance team. The boys said they wanted a vacation too. Rose asked what she would get in return. They said they could share information about the Duke with her. The girl was surprised and asked if they weren't forbidden to spread any information about him. When they answered that he allowed it, Rose realized that he knew that she was trying to find out something about him. Rose asked her first question. She asked if it was true that the Duke had the Iton family's mental illness. She was told that it was not quite so. The men of the Iton family are selfish but devoted to love. But there are also small side effects. They want to get back as much love as they gave. Rose thought that this was understandable. She decided that the problem was that the Duke was too honest and wanted the same from his chosen one. For the information received, the girl promised everyone a vacation and the guys were happy. When they left, Rose wondered why Duke Iton allowed them to share the information. She wondered if that meant he trusted her. She decided that Khan wanted her to be close to him and felt the same way about her that she felt about him. Assistant Jack informed the Duke that Count Brill requested an interview with his lordship. Khan replied that he could receive him in the afternoon. Sensing an unpleasant odor, the Duke asked Jack what had happened to him. The butler replied that he had used the ointment Lady Rose had given him. Khan asked in surprise why she gave him the medicine. Jack replied that she was very kind to all the servants in the mansion. The Duke smiled when he heard about her concern. When Rose was in the garden picking flowers for a bouquet, Jack approached her and thanked her for the ointment she had given him through the maid. He said his back hurt, but the ointment helped him. The girl replied that she was very glad that she could help him, but admitted that she had made a mistake. Rose said that she should have given him unscented ointment, since he interacted with people a lot. The girl promised to give him another ointment through the maid and got ready to leave. Jack told her to take care of the Duke. Lady Rose asked him in surprise why he was asking her to do this. After all, she still doesn't know Duke Khan very well. The girl said she was very interested in what kind of life he had lived, and why he was so cold to people. The butler replied that he could tell her something about the Duke's cruel childhood. To the elders who had lived in this estate for a long time, Master Kang was the heir of the family, no more, no less. He was not given the affection and attention that a child deserves. After his parents died, he was forced to go to war and lived only to survive. Jack said that Duke Khan didn't just not feel emotions, he just hadn't learned how to express them. The butler added that he had not been able to heal his childhood wounds. Jack admitted that when he looked at Mr. Khan, he always felt pain. But after meeting her, he changed a lot. And now the Duke is gradually getting used to human warmth. That's why Jack asked Lady Rose to stay with Duke Khan as long as possible. Rose sat in her room and thought about what the butler had told her. She had never thought before that Jack would ask her for something like this. The girl asked Casa if she should date the Duke when everything was over. The young man answered positively, which surprised Rosa. She asked him why he was not against their relationship. Casa replied that only she could decide who she dated. Then Rosa asked if no one would get hurt because of it. The guy replied that there was nothing wrong with that. He added that her problem was that she thought too much about other people. Casa said that no matter how perfect her plan was, no one was safe. The young man promised to take care of the problems that would arise so that Rose could, at least once in her life, make a choice in favor of her own happiness. The girl was happy that Casa supported her. The guy told her to go and tell the Duke about her feelings. Rosa thanked him and ran to Khan. Casa remained sitting in her room and looking at his apple. He was not jealous of Rosa. He did not care whether she had a husband or a lover. There was something more between them. Once upon a time, a boy decided that he would protect the girl who gave him an apple when he was dying of hunger on the street. He knew that their relationship would never end because they were like family. Count Thor von Guardian told the Duke that the Toho nobles recognized their master and wagged their tails at him. The Count noticed that the Duke was not listening to him and said that he had become inattentive. Duke Khan constantly remembered that night he spent with Rose. Her body, her breath. He wanted to feel it all again. Count Thor asked the Duke if he had fallen in love. This was true, but Khan was afraid that Rose would not be able to accept him. The Count told his lordship that no matter how cold he was to other people, he was very kind to his beloved. Then Count Thor asked how long they had known each other. The Duke asked incredulously if that mattered. The man replied that it did. He added that it could be a casual relationship in which they do not propose to each other. Then this relationship could be understood a little ambiguously. For example, the girl will tell him that she met someone else, because their relationship has not even begun. Khan said that he urgently needs to talk to Rose. At that moment, the girl knocked on their door and asked permission to come in. Duke Khan asked the Count to leave them alone and the man left, saying goodbye. Rose told Kanu that she was having a hard time controlling herself and wanted to talk to him. The Duke asked excitedly if she was ready to run away and break his heart. The girl asked the Duke if he knew who she was. He replied that he did. Rose admitted that she had also learned a lot about him from the people he had allowed to tell her. Then Rose said that the more she learned about him, the more she felt similarities between them. The girl added that he, like her, lived a lonely and stressful life. That's why she wanted to know more about him, because she likes him. Rose said that even though she didn't want it, it just so happened that she fell in love with him. Rosa admitted that this time she decided to make a choice in favor of her own happiness. Khan said that they should start their relationship and kiss the girl on the lips. Jack could not find the Duke for a long time throughout the estate. When he knocked on his chambers, Lady Rose opened the door. The butler asked why her face was so red. The girl replied that it was simply too hot here and ran away. Jack was surprised by this answer because it was never hot in the Duchy of Iton. Casa accompanied Rosa to the top of the mountain, which had the best view of the Iton estate. Rosa asked if he had brought the materials Gray had sent. The young man took documents with a map of the territory out of his bag and read what was written there. The territory of Iton. The climate is cold for growing crops. Winter rains for most of the year. Since agriculture is impossible, most residents earn their living as mercenaries. The population is declining, both nobles and commoners. They are moral with a deep-rooted preference for honor over money. The Dukes of Iton have been in power for generations. They adhere to the principle of ruling but not dominating. They demanded nothing more than the submission of the nobles. Casa added that the nobles had survived until now precisely because of this good attitude of the dukes. The taxes levied on the lords are quite low compared to other countries. When Rose asked his opinion on what he had read, Casa said that based on the information, it could be assumed that Iton would fall in a few years. Rose added that before that happens, the central aristocracy will already be here to take power into their own hands. The young man asked Lady Rose why she was suddenly so interested in the territory of Iton. The girl replied that she was the mistress of Duke Iton and would not allow the centralized power to take these lands. At a gathering of nobles, Count Thor was asked if Duke Iton would be arriving. The Count replied that he and Lady Rose would join them soon. The nobles were outraged that the Duke would come to the meeting with his mistress, but Count Thor calmed them down and said that it was Lady Rose who had persuaded His Grace to attend the meeting. Moreover, Duke Iton agreed to participate in the discussion on the condition that Lady Rose would also be a participant in this meeting. A nobleman asked if this woman was ruling too much. Count Thor called him a spy of the central aristocracy and said that he should not be at this meeting. Lady Rose entered the hall and apologized to everyone for her lateness. When she sat down at the table, one of the nobles said that this was the duke's seat and she could not occupy it. The nobleman accused of spying said that the highest-ranking person usually sat at the head of the table. He added that a duchess could sit there, but not a mistress. Duke Eton entered the hall and asked the nobles what they were dissatisfied with. Everyone remained silent, and his lordship said that they could begin the meeting. Lady Rose asked the spy if she had understood correctly that his name was Viscount Bale. When the count confirmed her guess, the girl said that she was there to help them. Viscount Bale asked Lady Rose in surprise how she could help them. He added that they wanted to put an end to the increasingly cruel tyranny of the central government, and that is why they invited the Duke here. If his lordship takes the initiative, they are ready to sacrifice their lives for Iton. Then the count asked how Lady Rose would help them if she couldn't even fight. The girl said that he was talking as if there was going to be a war with the central government right now. Lady Rose added that in this situation it was impossible to defeat the central government. Count Bale was indignant and shouted that she could not say that. He added that the Duke's mistress had no right to look down on Iton. The count said that these lands could have been devastated by foreign invasions long ago, if not for them. Then, Count Bale said that she knew nothing about Iton. Lady Rose replied that 3 families had already gone bankrupt and only titles remained. There are also more than 15 families who have not restored their prestige. The finances of the North have reached rock bottom. She asked how they were going to wage a war that required enormous resources. Rose said that if this continued, the legacy of Iton nobility would end with their generation. Count Bale slammed his fist on the table and said that he could no longer listen to her. Casa put his blade to his neck and said he would stab him if he did not calm down. Rosa asked Casa to put the blade away and continued her speech. She tried to explain to the nobles that they did not need war now. They needed to achieve financial independence. One of the nobles asked how this was possible if their lands were infertile. Lady Rose asked everyone to listen to her until the end, and if they did not like what they heard, she would stop talking. Count Bale asked how the daughter of the fallen baron could help them. Rose replied that the baron's daughter might not be able to, but the head of the Chaos Trade Guild could. Everyone began to whisper that Rose was the head of the guild, and they began to listen to her. The girl asked Kaz to give her the map and, spreading it out on the table in front of the nobles, began her story. There are various trade routes on the continent. In particular, the Silk Road connecting Terran and Kuber is one of the key trade routes, with countless other trade routes intertwined around it. High-quality silk and Kubera perfume were imported via this route. Terran exports luxury goods and manufactured goods. Rose said she liked the trade route and was going to make it available to Itan. Count Bale asked incredulously if the trade route was a road that could be remade. The girl said that if many people come and go, it will soon become a road. Then she added that there is something valuable in Itan. Everyone was surprised to hear about it, and Lady Rose said it was ice. The girl explained that tropical fruits and seafood were also transported along the Silk Road. The only way to keep them fresh during long-distance transportation is with ice, and the demand for it is very high, since Kubera has a tropical climate. Moreover, even if the ice melts, it can be used as drinking water. Therefore, Itan should be used as a transit point for the trade route. Infrastructure such as hotels and shops must be built. Ice is a consumer good of Kubera and a necessity for merchants. Lady Rose said that when the ice starts to be consumed, Itan will become the center of intercontinental trade, and this will boost the entire economy of Itan. The girl asked the nobles if it wasn't better to have economic power instead of fighting the central government. She added that her guild Chaos would take care of everything. As they rode in the carriage to their mansion, Rose confessed to Khan that she did not think they would be so easily convinced. After all, the Itan nobles are not very friendly. Khan said she had done well. Rose leaned on his shoulder and said she couldn't do it any further without his help. The girl added that he was a duke and therefore responsible for all the people of his duchy, both nobles and commoners. But now he would not just be a duke. Khan asked what she meant by that, but Rose had fallen asleep. The young man stroked her hair and wondered what she wanted to do with him and Itan.